look a little bit more.
Yeah. Hey, look.
Do you have a motorcycle?
I do.
Sick.
I do.
Sponsored by Nalgene and Sprite.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Liz. I'm here today with State Senator Zach Wahls, who is running for U.S. Senate from the great state of Iowa. Zach, why should people pay attention to your campaign and why should they vote for you?
Well, Liz, it's great to be with you. I'm really excited to have the conversation today. We're running this campaign for a really simple reason, which is that I think Iowans across our state are working harder than ever, but can't seem to get ahead. And I want to go to Washington to do something about the problems that Iowans are facing in their everyday lives. We have a senator in there now, and Senator Joni Ernst, who is not focused on the problems that Iowans are facing. She's out here talking about how we're all going to die from Republican Medicaid cuts, and then literally just hours ago, she voted for those cuts. Those cuts are going to have devastating impacts here in our state. I'm sure we'll talk about that more here in a minute. But I think it's time for a new generation of leadership. It's time for someone who has a track record of standing up to the establishment in both parties. I've done that. I've got scars to show for it. And Iowans can trust that I will never hesitate to stand up to anybody when I think that that's what we have to do the best for the people of Iowa. We're really excited to get the campaign off the ground. If folks want to learn more and join, they can find us on our website or all the social media platforms.
Senate just passed the big, beautiful bill.
Yeah.
Your opponent or future opponent, Joni Ernst, voted in favor of passing this bill. What are your immediate thoughts and concerns?
Well, look, I thought it was shocking that Senator Ernst wound up voting yes on the bill. There were 3 Republicans who voted no. They had to bring J.D. Vance in to break the tie. Senator Ernst's vote for this bill is devastating for the people of Iowa. There are 600,000 Iowans who rely on Medicaid, which is our public health insurance program, over 200,000 Iowa children among them. And the cuts to Medicaid that are in this budget are jeopardizing the operation of 20 rural hospitals across Iowa. So even if you're not on Medicaid, but you depend on that hospital, your future is now in jeopardy. And there are 5 hospitals that are actually at jeopardy for potentially immediate closure following this law taking effect. One of those hospitals is Montgomery County Memorial Hospital in Red Oak, Iowa. So Joni's hometown hospital is one of the hospitals that could be on the chopping block. And I just can't even bring myself to comprehend how out of touch you have to be to vote yes on a piece of legislation that's going to close your hometown hospital. I think it's shocking.
That definitely is shocking. I mean, how long has Joni Ernst been in Washington, D.C.? Has it been 10 years?
So she was first elected in 2014. So she's coming up here on the end of her second term in 2026. You know, what's interesting about that is back in 2014, when she was running in the Republican primary, she made a pledge that she would only serve 2 terms, made that very clear on video. And now, of course, she's gearing up to run for her 3rd term. And, we wonder why people don't trust politicians. It's a pretty good example.
Joni Ernst has given us a few catchphrases through the years. I remember seeing her ads back in the day. Her ads said, "Make them squeal." And she promised to make politicians in D.C. squeal. Yeah. Recently, she has hit us with, "We all are going to die." Yep. What would be a catchphrase or a phrase that you'd like voters to think of when they think of Zach Wahls, candidate for U.S. Senate?
Well, it's funny. We actually just released our first ad of the campaign last week, and it was talking about this broken promise from Senator Ernst about only serving 2 terms. And our line in that was, Senator Ernst says that she's going to make them squeal. We say that she's all squeal, no bacon. When it comes to me, look, I'm running because I want to be a candidate for us, for the people. I think that that's what Iowans expect from their senator. I think it's what we deserve from our senator. Iowans are hardworking people, and we deserve a senator who works as hard as we do.
You're from Eastern Iowa. I think I already know the answer to this question, but I have to ask, Hawkeyes or Cyclones?
Definitely Hawkeyes. I grew up cheering for the black and gold. When I went to school at the University of Iowa, so, my family has been season ticket holders for the Iowa women's basketball team for a long time. We started going to games back in the mid to late 00s. My mom, Terry, has multiple sclerosis, and we were looking for an activity that could get the family out of the house, do some family bonding time, and that was a way to do that. Obviously, it's been tremendous to watch the growth of that program over the last several years. Coach Jensen is a good friend. Really excited to see the direction that she takes, especially with so many promising recruits coming on board.
Now, you mentioned that you're a relatively new dad. How old is your son?
Yeah, Eli just turned 15 months, so he's in that walking phase now, which is a little surreal. He's got more and more words coming online. He can understand more. I love him to bits. It's been just this totally transformational thing for me to experience as a parent in ways that I didn't even understand were possible. Watching a human mind grow and develop is incredible. And then, just honestly watching my parents with him, getting to see my mom holding him, Jackie holding him, you can see that it's very similar to how when my mom was a parent, what it would have been like to be there when she had me. And so it's a very, it's a very cool very cool experience.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
I have to ask too, are you a Cocoa Melon or a Bluey household?
We're not quite at the age yet. We have several Bluey books. They have like these 5-minute stories. You can buy packs of those. My wife is an Australian American, so we are definitely going to be a Bluey household. Just a matter of time.
As a dad, you have this new perspective as a parent. Your child will grow up to be hopefully a happy, healthy adult in the state of Iowa. If you could build a future for Eli to live in the state, what would that look like? And what would be some things that need to change?
It's a big question. I mean, and frankly, Liz, it's a big part of why I decided to get into this race. It wasn't something that my wife and I had on our bingo card at the start of the year, but a big part of our conversation throughout the spring was thinking about that future for Eli and for so many people here in Iowa. I'm a 6th-generation Iowan. My mom's a 5th-generation Iowa farm girl from Northeast Iowa, where the Wahls homestead is still in the family. And now here raising the 7th generation, you certainly develop a new appreciation for the challenges of parenthood, at the beginning. I think for our generation, dads are getting more involved in their kids' lives, which is, I think, great. And it's really rewarding, and obviously results, I think, in a better partnership with your spouse. I also think it has given me some insight to the challenges that young families are facing. When I drop my son off for daycare in the morning, I'm reminded that I'm paying almost as much for childcare as I am for my mortgage, which is true, I think, for probably almost every Iowan who has their child in daycare. Obviously, you see it at the grocery store. Definitely, I'm hearing from my constituents across the state about challenges with healthcare. We are fortunate. We have good health insurance, but the cost of giving birth is going up. Labor and delivery units across the state, especially in rural Iowa, are closing. And so it's getting harder and harder for that to happen. And so I think that there's some real challenges on the parenting side in particular. In terms of the kind of changes that we need to see in our state, I mean, we could have a whole probably 30-minute conversation on that topic alone. If you go to my website, zachwahls.com, I got a ton of information on there. There's a good link to my Substack that has more information about this vision that we have for the state of Iowa. But it really starts with a new generation of leaders. We need people who are going to help our state move past the broken politics that have been holding us back. Obviously, what Iowa Democrats have been doing in our state isn't working. We need change. That's change that I tried to deliver on in the state Senate, and that's certainly the change that we're going to try to bring to the campaign. One thing that happened yesterday, we had our first major fundraising deadline, and I was thrilled. We got our 99th county last night, Wright County, and the guy who made the contribution is named Gary. I was able to get on the phone with Gary and just ask him why he was supporting the campaign. And Gary's actually a registered Republican, retired small-town lawyer, and a Vietnam veteran. And he just said, looking at what's happening across our state, and what's happening in Washington, D.C., it's time for a change. And in order for Eli to grow up in the state that I want him to live in, we're going to need to make that a reality.
As a state senator and as a candidate, you obviously talk to a lot of Iowans.
Yeah.
What are they saying their top issues and concerns are? And what will you do to solve their problems and address those issues?
As we get the campaign growing here, we don't want to wait until I'm in office to start solving problems. One of the things that I have enjoyed the most as a state lawmaker is the opportunity to engage in constituent service for my constituents, both in my Senate district. But when I hear from folks, even if they're not in my district and they've got an issue that I can help solve, doing my best to help solve that issue. We are inviting people to reach out, talk to us about the challenge that they're seeing in their community. We won't be able to solve every problem, right? The problems that we're going to have the ability to be a part of solving, we want to do that. I think that Iowans deserve a senator who takes that part of the job as seriously as the legislating part, right? Because our elected officials, they don't represent the government to us. They represent us to the government. They are elected representatives in the Senate, in the House, and they represent us, not the government, not the special interests, not the insiders. When I am talking with people, I hear about a lot of problems. Economic issues are currently at the top of the list, I'd say by a fairly healthy margin. And you're seeing that bear out in the statistics as well. 48th in income, 49th in GDP. I think there's a new report that is tied for dead last, actually.
Oh, I saw that too.
Yeah. So that's pretty messed up, right? And it's hurting people. And now these cuts to Medicaid are going to make those worse. The tariffs are making that worse. And not having a senator in Joni Ernst who's willing to stand up against those things is a huge problem. Healthcare goes right into that, unfortunately. We all know Iowa's #1 for cancer rates, but we're seeing lots of other challenges, and the Medicaid cuts are a big part of that. Mental health is a really big issue that unfortunately does not get talked about enough. We've passed quite a few pieces of legislation at the state level trying to improve that. Most of those services are delivered at the local level, but the state plays a pretty key role in helping to coordinate a lot of that. And I'm going to continue to be focused on that because that's an issue that affects everybody, obviously. I think I've got some particular concerns about how it affects young people and challenges that young people are facing. And then the final piece I would just say, that broad category of family. And so we talked a little bit, obviously, about some of the challenges that parents are facing. I put public education in that category as well. I was a strong opponent to the private school voucher scheme. Some Iowa Republicans, politicians pushed through the legislature several years ago. We need more oversight. The Department of Education should be doing that. Private schools need to have some real accountability. I know that we've got, obviously, Rob Sand, who's a candidate for governor, who's talking about that as well. I mean, again, historically, that was an area where you had bipartisan agreement, and unfortunately, you've had a more radical faction within the Republican Party really take over on that issue. Whether it's economic issues, healthcare issues, family issues, they're all tied together, obviously, but I'd say those are the three biggest ones.
What is one piece of media that you've consumed lately that you would recommend? Podcast, movie, show, book, etc.
I just finished Andor season 2, which was fantastic. Second and final season in Andor, which is this great series from the Star Wars universe, all about revolutionary movements and fighting back against authoritarianism. Some timely themes in that show.
It seems timely.
Yeah, great acting, great characters, great production. Just a really, really beautiful show. And I just finished a book that I quite enjoyed by Ryan Holiday. He has this series, the Stoic Value series. I think the fourth one's actually, I just saw it was just out for pre-release soon. Basically just talking about doing the right thing at the right time. Again, working in politics, definitely something you spend a lot of time thinking about.
Well, thank you for coming and hanging out with me and answering some questions. I'm really excited about your campaign. I know a lot of Iowans are hungry for change, both at the state level and in Washington, D.C. So thank you for your time. Thank you for running, and thank you for representing Iowans.
My pleasure.